Millions of people are doing something Microsoft never thought possible. They're walking away from Windows, not just complaining, not just threatening, actually leaving. Linux has achieved a new milestone in the United States, breaking the 5% barrier for desktop operating system market share for the first time. Mac sales are surging in businesses that swore they'd never switch. Even massive corporations are telling Microsoft thanks, but no thanks to Windows 11. And the craziest part? Microsoft just admitted in November 2025 that almost all major Windows 11 features are fundamentally broken. But the real story is bigger than any single failure. They're injecting ads into an operating system people already paid for. They're installing updates that crash systems, destroy performance, and ignore every setting you configure to stop them. Enterprise customers, Microsoft's most loyal segment, are buying extended support contracts just to avoid upgrading. They're telling Microsoft, we'll migrate when we're ready, not when you demand it. This isn't another tech controversy that blows over in a week. This is the beginning of the end for Windows dominance, and what's coming next will reshape computing as we know it. Microsoft unveils this new AI capability. Sounds innovative, right? Artificial intelligence that helps you remember what you were working on. Sounds helpful? Until you read the fine print. Recall takes screenshots of everything on your computer, every 5 seconds. Your bank account login page, screenshot. Your private medical records, screenshot. Your confidential work emails, screenshot. That embarrassing Google search you'd never want anyone to see, screenshot. All of it is stored in a database on your hard drive. And here's the nightmare part. When security researchers examined this database, they found zero encryption. Everything's sitting there in plain text. Your passwords, your credit card numbers, your conversations on Signal that are supposed to disappear. All permanently recorded, indexed, searchable. Imagine handing a detailed journal of every single thing you've done on your computer to someone. Every website, every document, every photo, every message. Now imagine that journal sitting unprotected where hackers, divorce lawyers, suspicious partners, or law enforcement with a warrant can grab it. Tech communities exploded. Users called Recall exactly what it is: literal spyware installed by Microsoft themselves. The backlash was so intense that Microsoft had to scramble and make Recall opt-in instead of automatic. But get this, even after Microsoft's damage control, researchers discovered the protection is basically fake. The Windows Hello pin that's supposed to secure your Recall data? Easily bypassed. The automated filters meant to block sensitive information, like credit cards? Still letting financial data slip through the cracks? And here's where it gets dystopian. Users on tech forums started connecting the dots. What's Microsoft's real endgame here? Think about the scale. Tens of thousands of corporations, millions of office workers, all having their daily workflows photographed every 5 seconds. You're not just using your computer, you're training an AI replacement. Every spreadsheet you build, every email you write, every design you create, every problem you solve, the AI watches over your shoulder like an apprentice, learning your job, studying your techniques, absorbing your expertise. And once it learns enough, it won't need you anymore. Now imagine if Apple announced the exact same feature. There would be concerns, sure, but nothing like this firestorm. Why? Because Apple spent decades building trust. Privacy as a core value, user experience over everything else, security built into the foundation. Microsoft, they destroyed that trust long ago. Years of forcing telemetry collection, injecting ads into the operating system, installing features users explicitly removed, breaking promises about data collection. They assume the worst. Because Microsoft earned that assumption. Trust is the most valuable currency in technology, and Microsoft is bankrupt. Now, let's talk about how Microsoft is trying to force you to throw away a perfectly good computer. Windows 11 has strict hardware requirements. Your computer needs something called TPM 2.0. It needs Secure Boot enabled. It needs a processor from the last few years. Sounds reasonable, right? Security features, modern technology. Makes sense. Except here's what Microsoft isn't telling you. These requirements lock out 25% of all Windows 10 computers. Not slow computers, not broken computers. Perfectly functional machines that run Windows 10 beautifully. Your computer boots in seconds, runs all your programs smoothly, handles everything you throw at it. But Microsoft says, sorry, your processor is from 2018 instead of 2020. No Windows 11 for you. Time to buy a new computer. Here's the smoking gun. Tech enthusiasts bypassed these requirements and installed Windows 11 anyway. You know what happened? It runs perfectly. No issues, no crashes, no security problems. The restrictions are completely artificial. Microsoft calls these requirements non-negotiable. They claim it's about security and performance, but users proved that's a lie. So what's this really about? Follow the money. Microsoft has deep partnerships with computer manufacturers. Dell, HP, Lenovo. When Microsoft forces millions of people to replace perfectly good computers, Guess who profits? Everyone except you. This is planned obsolescence at a scale we've never seen before. This isn't a phone with a battery that degrades. This is artificial software restrictions designed to create electronic waste and force hardware purchases. And people are furious. Surveys show 26% of users in the UK plan to keep using Windows 10 past its official end date in October 2025. Security risks be damned. Another 6% are ditching Windows entirely. Even Microsoft's most loyal customers, the massive corporations that run entire businesses on Windows, are rebelling. They're buying something called extended security updates. These are paid subscriptions that let them keep using Windows 10 after official support ends. But here's what's fascinating. Companies aren't treating these subscriptions as emergency measures. They're building them into long-term plans. They're telling Microsoft we'll upgrade when it makes business sense, not when you arbitrarily decide our computers are obsolete. This transforms the entire power dynamic. For decades, Microsoft dictated terms and customers followed. Now customers are asserting autonomy, treating Windows as just another vendor they can replace if the relationship goes bad. Dell's executives publicly confirmed that Windows 11 adoption is trailing previous Windows upgrades by double-digit percentages at equivalent points in the life cycle. Translation? Customers are rejecting Windows 11 harder than any previous version in modern history. What should be a simple software update has become a mandatory hardware replacement program, costing hundreds or thousands of dollars per device. And users across the world are saying no, not this time. But let's say you can upgrade to Windows 11. Let's say your hardware meets the requirements. Should you actually do it? Because Windows 11 has a massive performance problem that Microsoft tried to hide. Users started reporting something bizarre. Windows 11 feels slower than Windows 10. Not slightly slower. Dramatically, noticeably, frustratingly slower. File Explorer taking forever to open. Right-click menus lagging before they appear. Programs stuttering when they never did before. The entire system feeling bloated and sluggish. Community after community filled with complaints. Same hardware, same programs, same tasks. But Windows 11 runs 2 to 3 times slower than Windows 10. And then Microsoft quietly admitted it. Windows 11 performs worse than Windows 10 on high-end hardware. Read that again. The newer operating system is slower than the old one on powerful computers. What's the point of upgrading? Then the updates started breaking everything. January 2025 rolls around. Routine security update. Users install it and their computers crash. Blue screens everywhere. Specific error messages indicating system failures. Network connections dropping. Security chips malfunctioning. Some users had to completely reinstall Windows from scratch just to get their computers working again. The 24H2 update, which should be a simple version bump, caused multi-second freezes on systems with AMD Ryzen processors and multiple monitors. Users sitting there watching their mouse cursor freeze in midair for seconds at a time. In 2025? From a company worth over $2 trillion? The gaming community got massacred. Gamers, historically Windows' most passionate defenders, watched their frame rates collapse. One update caused frame rates in popular games to drop from smooth 120 to 140 frames per second down to choppy 80 to 90 frames per second on high-end graphics cards. Another update reduced performance from 236 frames per second to 215 frames per second. These aren't budget builds. These are expensive gaming rigs with top-tier components. Windows 11 has bugs in its CPU scheduling that cause sudden performance drops during gameplay. Your frame rate will be smooth, then suddenly plummet below 10 frames per second or freeze completely, even when you're playing a solo game with nothing else running. Gamers depend on consistent performance. Windows 11 delivers the opposite. In November 2025, Microsoft published something shocking, an admission that almost all major Windows 11 core features are broken, not minor features. Core functionality, things that should work flawlessly. Microsoft confirmed what users had been reporting for months, while support agents dismissed their complaints as user error. Windows Update itself became dysfunctional in the 24H2 version. Fresh installations of Windows 11 would complete, and then Windows Update wouldn't work. Updates would fail immediately, on brand new installations. Users described the release as basically a disaster. December 2025 brought a bug so obvious it's embarrassing. File Explorer flashes bright white when you open it in dark mode. Microsoft confirmed the bug and offered no immediate fix beyond rolling back the update. How does something this visually obvious escape testing? How does it ship to millions of users? Quality control has completely collapsed at Microsoft. Features ship broken, updates break more than they fix, and users are trapped in the cycle with no way out. Here's the most disturbing part of the Windows 11 experience. You paid for your computer, you bought Windows, but you don't actually control it. Updates install themselves without asking. You configure settings to pause updates, to defer them, to set specific active hours when your computer should never restart. Microsoft ignores all of it. Your computer restarts in the middle of your workday. Updates show up as installed when you never clicked install. You're carefully configured, preferences get overwritten. Users report spending entire days on the phone with Microsoft support trying to stop automatic updates. Support agents promise they've fixed it. They walk you through setting changes. Everything looks good. Then, 2 weeks later, another update installs itself anyway, undoing everything. But it gets worse. Microsoft actively re-enables features you explicitly disabled. You turn off data collection telemetry. Next update turns it back on. You uninstall Cortana Voice Assistant. It reinstalls itself. You remove OneDrive Cloud Storage. Microsoft brings it back. Starting in October 2025, Microsoft began automatically installing Copilot AI Assistant on Windows 11 computers that have Microsoft 365 apps. No opt-out option. No permission requested. Just forced installation. If you don't have administrator access to your computer, you can't even remove it. This isn't a bug in the update system. This is intentional design. Microsoft calls it secure by default computing. Translation? Microsoft retains ultimate authority over your computer regardless of your preferences. They decide what software runs, when updates happen, which features stay enabled. Your ownership of the device is an illusion. You're a tenant in Microsoft's property. Think about what that means. You spent hundreds or thousands of dollars on hardware. You paid for a Windows license, but Microsoft treats your computer as their testing ground, their advertising platform, their data collection system. The relationship between user and operating system has fundamentally changed. It used to be you owned your tools. Your computer did what you told it to do. Now Microsoft's priorities override yours every single time. Remember when you bought software and that was the transaction? You paid money. You got software. Done. Microsoft has a different vision now. Open the Start menu. There are ads for Microsoft products. Microsoft 365 subscriptions, Xbox Game Pass, sometimes third-party apps paying Microsoft for promotion. Your lock screen shows advertisements. File Explorer suggests Microsoft services. The Settings app promotes features you don't want. New users describe feeling like their computer came infected with adware straight from the factory. Why am I seeing ads in an operating system I purchased? What am I paying for if not an ad-free experience? You can opt out. Sort of. You dig through settings menus, disable personalization, turn off tailored experiences, reject promotional content, takes 20 minutes to find everything, then an update installs, new ad placements appear, different settings to find and disable. It's a never-ending battle to keep ads out of your operating system. Former Microsoft engineers have gone public criticizing the Start menu design. They confirm what users suspected. Microsoft prioritized advertising revenue over user experience and core interface. Design decisions. The ads aren't a side effect, they're the goal. This represents Microsoft's philosophical transformation. You're not a customer who bought a product anymore. You're a monetizable audience. Your attention has value. Microsoft can sell to advertisers. Your data has value. Microsoft can exploit for targeted marketing. You paid for Windows. But in Microsoft's view, that was just the entry fee. The real business model is extracting ongoing revenue from your eyeballs and your data. Windows 11 removed features that users depended on for literal decades. The taskbar at the bottom of your screen. It's been a Windows staple since Windows 95. 30 years of consistent functionality. Windows 11 rewrote it from scratch and deleted essential features in the process. You can't move the taskbar anymore. It's locked to the bottom. Want it on the side of your screen like you've had for 15 years? Too bad. Want it at the top? Not allowed. You can't. You drag files to application icons on the taskbar to open them. You can't resize the taskbar to show 2 rows of icons. You can't ungroup combined windows. You can't make the icons smaller to fit more on screen. Power users who organize complex workflows around these features found themselves unable to work efficiently. They had to install third-party modifications, unofficial patches that hacked the system just to restore basic Windows 10 functionality. The right-click context menu got redesigned, used to show all your options immediately. Now it shows a simplified menu that hides most options behind an extra click called Show More Options. Every single file operation now requires an additional click. That adds up to thousands of extra clicks per day for people who manage files professionally. Photographers, video editors, developers, writers, all slowed down by an interface designed for touch tablets instead of desktop productivity. Users describe the new context menu as slow, oversized, inconsistent with other menus, and basically useless unless you modify registry settings to bring back the old version. The registry, the dangerous low-level system configuration database. Just to get a functional right-click menu, Microsoft later promised to fix the context menu problems, implicitly admitting the design is broken, but they shipped this to hundreds of millions of users first. Released it as finished, Declared it an improvement. See the pattern? Release incomplete features, wait for complaints, maybe fix them eventually, maybe not. Meanwhile, users suffer through broken interfaces, wondering why Microsoft makes these decisions. Updates don't just force themselves on you, they fail constantly. And when they fail spectacularly. Tech support communities are absolutely flooded with posts about Windows 11 updates that won't install, updates that get stuck, updates that download but won't apply, updates that fail and roll back, then try again, then fail again, in an endless loop. Real user experiences. Updates stall at 88% completion for 16 hours straight. No progress, no error message, just frozen. Eventually it fails and spends another hour rolling back changes. The 24H2 update, which should be a routine version upgrade, makes Windows Update itself stop working on fresh installations. You install Windows 11 for the first time. Everything seems fine. Then Windows Update breaks and refuses to install any subsequent updates. One user encountered update failures 6 times across 4 different computers before discovering Microsoft has a hidden recovery tool called Fix Problems using Windows Update that takes about an hour to repair the update mechanism. Hidden. Not mentioned in error messages. Not easy to find. You have to know it exists. Updates download and get stuck at random percentages. 5%, 37%, 95%. They sit there for hours, then fail with vague error messages that tell you nothing useful. The workaround? Download update files manually from Microsoft's website. Find the right file in a catalog of thousands. Download it separately. Install it manually using command line tools. This process takes hours and often requires multiple attempts before succeeding. The standard troubleshooting process users share in communities is absurd. You have to open administrative command prompts, run system file checker scans, execute repair commands for Windows image servicing, stop Windows Update services manually, rename system folders, restart specific services in particular sequences. Then you have to disable antivirus software temporarily, uninstall audio drivers before upgrading, remove any hardware devices showing warning icons in Device Manager, disconnect external hard drives and USB devices that might interfere. This is not something regular users can do. This requires technical knowledge most people don't have. And they shouldn't need it. Updates should work. That's the bare minimum expectation. Here's the question everyone asks. Why do updates designed by Microsoft engineers require community-sourced workarounds to function? Why are users troubleshooting Microsoft's broken code? Some people just give up. They try updating to Windows 11. It fails repeatedly. They spend hours troubleshooting. Nothing works. They give up and go back to Windows 10 or switch to something else entirely. The sheer volume of posts about stuck and failed updates indicates this isn't isolated incidents. So what are people actually doing? They're leaving Windows. In unprecedented numbers, Linux desktop usage hit an all-time record of 5.03% in the United States by June 2025. That might sound small, but this is historic. Linux has been stuck below 2% for decades. Now it's breaking through. Barriers. When you combine Linux with Chrome OS, which runs on Linux foundations, the Linux family commands 7.74% of the global desktop market. Together, they represent the fastest growing segment in desktop computing. Linux grew from 1.97% in December 2023 to 3.05% globally by November 2025. That's 55% growth in less than 2 years. That's explosive by operating system standards, and the momentum is accelerating. Data analysis of over 15 million consumer desktop computers found Linux representing slightly more than 6% of the PC market. Government website analytics show 23.3% of visitors using Linux kernel-based systems, including Chrome OS and Android. The real numbers might be significantly higher than traditional metrics capture. Zorin OS, a beginner-friendly Linux distribution designed specifically for Windows, Refugees achieved 1 million downloads shortly after its latest release. Over 78% of those downloads came from Windows users seriously contemplating the switch, not tech enthusiasts experimenting. That's real migration, real people abandoning Windows. Why is Linux suddenly viable? 3 game-changing developments. First, gaming compatibility. Steam Proton technology lets you play Windows games on Linux with minimal performance loss. The Steam Deck portable gaming console runs Linux-based Steam OS and plays thousands of Windows games flawlessly. Linux proved it can deliver console-quality gaming while offering full desktop functionality. Second, mainstream distributions became genuinely user-friendly. Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Zorin, Pop! OS. These systems install easier than Windows. They come with productivity software pre-installed. They have app stores that work like smartphones. You don't need to be a programmer anymore. Third, hardware. Compatibility improved dramatically. Wi-Fi drivers, graphics drivers, printer support. All the things that used to be Linux nightmares now just work, often better than Windows. What does Linux offer that Windows doesn't? Let's count. 0 licensing costs, completely free forever, no forced telemetry spying on your activities, no start menu advertisements, no bloatware you have to uninstall, superior performance on older hardware that Windows 11 rejects, complete transparency through open source code that you can audit to verify it does what it claims. Linux distributions provide deeply customizable experiences that respect your preferences. They restore the sense of computer ownership that Windows has systematically stripped away. Your computer does what you tell it to do, not what Microsoft wants it to do. Online communities dedicated to helping Windows users switch to Linux exploded throughout 2025. Video tutorials walking people through installation step by step. Forums answering beginner questions with patience. People building entire support ecosystems around welcoming Windows refugees. Users describe relief when they switch. No more update anxiety, wondering when Windows will force a restart. No more privacy violations, wondering what data Microsoft is collecting. No more performance degradation, wondering why their computer feels slower every month. Linux systems feel faster, more stable, more respectful of the human using them. Apple's macOS is gaining ground too, especially in business environments. Companies analyzing total cost of ownership discover Macs cost less when you account for reduced IT support burden, longer hardware life cycles, and superior built-in security. Macs provide intuitive user experiences requiring less training. They come with useful productivity apps pre-installed. They eliminate the driver installation nightmares that plague Windows deployments. Apple's vertical integration, manufacturing both hardware and software, ensures optimization. Windows can't match across the fragmented landscape of PC manufacturers. Users switching from Windows to Mac commonly report that Apple computers feel more reliable, more stable, more inspiring to work on. Trackpad gestures and system interactions designed around human ergonomics rather than decades of legacy compatibility baggage. Chrome OS dominates the education sector with 8.44% of the United States market. 93% of school districts plan Chromebook purchases in 2025. Think about what that means long-term. An entire generation is growing up using Chromebooks as their primary computing device. These kids never experience Windows as the default. They approach technology with mobile-first attitudes and cloud-native expectations that Windows struggles to meet. When these students enter the workforce in 5 to 10 years, they won't automatically request Windows. Computers? They'll ask for whatever works best, whatever respects their time, whatever doesn't fight them constantly. For many, that won't be Windows. The erosion of Windows as the assumed platform among future knowledge workers represents an existential threat to Microsoft more significant than any quarterly market share numbers. Even Microsoft's most loyal customers, the massive corporations running entire businesses on Windows, are pushing back. Windows 11 had a volatile year in 2025. Market share climbed to 53.51% in July. Then it unexpectedly dropped to 49.08% by August. That's not supposed to happen. Operating system adoption should steadily increase, not reverse. Windows 10 maintained 45.53% market share by August 2025, despite officially ending mainstream support in October. Users stayed on the old version even after security updates stopped. That's how much they want to avoid Windows 11. Enterprise customers are deploying extended security updates and delaying Windows 11 migrations indefinitely. These are paid subscriptions that keep Windows 10 secure after official support ends. Companies aren't treating them as emergency measures. They're building them into multi-year strategic plans. This is customers telling Microsoft, we'll upgrade when we're ready, not when you demand it. We'll migrate when Windows 11 makes business sense, not to meet your artificial deadlines. Dell executives publicly stated that Windows 11 adoption is trailing previous Windows upgrades by double-digit percentage points at equivalent stages following support end dates. This is Dell, one of Microsoft's biggest partners, confirming that enterprise customers are rejecting Windows 11 harder than any previous version. This represents a profound shift in the power dynamic between Microsoft and customers. For decades, Microsoft set terms and customers followed. Now customers are asserting independence, treating Windows as just another vendor they can replace if the relationship deteriorates. Microsoft stands at a crossroads with only 2 paths forward. Path 1. Continue aggressive monetization through advertising, invasive telemetry, forced AI integration, and user-hostile policies. Double down on treating customers as data sources and eyeballs to monetize rather than people to serve. Path 2. Return to a user-centric philosophy that prioritizes reliability, performance, privacy, and user autonomy. Remember that people choose Windows, they're not trapped in it anymore. Every controversial decision compounds trust deficits accumulated over years of disrespecting user preferences. Users now assume the worst about Microsoft's intentions, regardless of what features actually do. That assumption is Microsoft's own creation. The technical debt from rushing Windows 11 to market manifests everywhere. Persistent quality control failures, updates that break more than they fix, performance regressions that make newer systems slower than old ones, incomplete features shipped as finished products. These problems signal systemic issues in development culture, quality assurance processes, and executive leadership prioritizing announcement deadlines over engineering excellence. The convergence of restrictive hardware requirements, invasive privacy practices, persistent performance problems, aggressive monetization, and viable alternatives has created perfect conditions for Windows' decline. Microsoft, the corporation, isn't dying. Azure cloud services, Office 365 subscriptions, and enterprise software licensing will sustain financial performance. But Windows is dying as the assumed default computing platform. Windows is transitioning from dominant monopoly, controlling 95% of desktops, to one option among several in an increasingly diverse operating system landscape. That's a historic reversal for a company that built its empire on operating system ubiquity. Users are voting with their devices, migrating to platforms that respect preferences, protect privacy, deliver reliable performance, and treat them as valued customers rather than monetizable resources to exploit. Microsoft's failure to recognize or address these fundamental grievances ensures continued erosion of the Windows user base. One frustrated user at a time, one failed update at a time, one forced restart at a time, until Windows becomes a legacy platform maintained for compatibility rather than the vibrant ecosystem that defined personal computing for 3 generations. Windows is dying, and Microsoft can't stop what's coming. What about you? Still using Windows? Thinking about switching? Already made the jump? Let me know in the comments what your experience has been. And if you found this deep dive valuable, hit that like button and subscribe for more tech analysis that cuts through the marketing to show you what's really happening. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.